Hi, I'm Amanda, and I am the runner that you'll be seeing in the videos on this channel. I'm 34 years old, and I've been running. I ran track in middle school and high school as a sprinter, but I've been distance running since about my mid-20s. And specifically today, I'm going to be talking to you about the differences that I've noticed between the Fitbit Sense, which I have on this arm, and the Garmin Forerunner 255 on this arm. I've had the Fitbit Sense for probably 3 years at this point, I would say, and I've had the Garmin for 3 weeks. So I have a lot of data that I can tell you about this one and a lot of differences and things that I've liked better with the Garmin. So let's go for a run. So to start a run on the Garmin Forerunner 255, this has dedicated buttons. It's not a touch screen. So I press my start stop button and I have my options along here. Run is selected, so I press here. It gives me a suggestion for what it thinks I should run today, but I'm going to ignore that. So I'm just going to press back, and now I know that I'm set up for a run. As soon as I get ready to go, I'll press start and it'll be all set. For the Fitbit Sense, what you'll do is swipe and select exercise. You'll have to scroll down to find the exercise that you want to do. They're alphabetical, so here's run. Once GPS connects, which it has now, I'll just press the arrow and begin my run. Having run for a few weeks now with the Garmin Forerunner 255 versus the Fitbit Sense that I've had for a couple years, I can say that I do prefer the Garmin Forerunner, but that there are pros and cons for both watches. I love that the Garmin has dedicated buttons instead of a touchscreen so that you can start and stop your long runs or start and stop if you're doing sprints or track work. It's much easier. Even though the Fitbit has a start and stop section on the side, you do still need to swipe within the touchscreen device to do different selections, and that can be really hard when you're sweaty. The Garmin has much more detailed information for training purposes, and it's all included without an additional subscription required, whereas Fitbit gives you certain information, but if you want more detailed data that you'll use for your training, you have to pay for their subscription, and that was not something I was doing, so I didn't have access to all of the data that I would have liked and that I now get from the Garmin. If I get a text or notification while I'm running, the Garmin will tell me at the top of the display, whereas the Fitbit won't tell you while you're in an active workout mode. So it will give notifications if you're just wearing the watch throughout the day, but it only displays the data for the activity you're doing and won't show you your text message or notification. So I like that a lot better about the Garmin, just because if I get texts from my husband or a call from the children's schools, I can know that right by looking at my watch without having to dig out my phone. The Garmin has seemed to be more consistent in its mileage for me than I have found with the Fitbit. The Garmin that I've had it for 3 weeks now, it has done 4 consistent 5-mile route near our house, as well as another 5-mile route when we were out of town, and both came in at exactly the same mileage, whereas the Fitbit, it's been really inconsistent in the mileage it has shown. I use a pretty standard 5-mile route near our house, and it will vary by as much as a third of a mile, depending on if it's a cloudy day or I guess if the GPS just doesn't want to work. So I have always had to run with my Strava app recording on my phone and my Fitbit going at the same time, whereas the Garmin, I just start, stop, and it's been super consistent. The Garmin gives me the option to calibrate my distance run on a treadmill with the treadmill's displayed distance, which is a really nice feature because sometimes those vary a little bit, and the Fitbit has never given me that option. The training effect data on the Garmin is really helpful when you're training for a race. It can show you if you are in your correct zones, how long you need to recover. It just has a lot more information in that section, and I think that that would have been something you would have had to subscribe within the Fitbit app in order to access. The Garmin keeps track of outdoor temperature, weather conditions, and wind speed when you're on your runs, which is really cool because anybody who's run knows that a run at 45 degrees versus a run at 75 degrees is a huge difference. And it's nice to know if I look back at a run like, oh, well, it was really hot, so that might make a difference. Or, boy, I had a headwind like the whole time. And I find that information really useful. The Garmin is also better, in my opinion, at sleep tracking, heart rate, and breathing data than the Sense seemed to be. It was never bad with the Fitbit, but it was a little bit finicky, and I found the Garmin is very accurate to what I would expect for myself. As far as cons for the Garmin, I do miss the voice command options that I had with the Fitbit. I could tell my Fitbit to send a certain message or open a certain song, and I can't do that with the Garmin, and that part is something I miss, as well as the fact that the Garmin is definitely more utilitarian in its design and display, both for the device that you wear on your arm and for the app on your phone than the Fitbit was. It's big, so if you have tiny wrists like me, it'll take up most of your arm width, and it just looks like a sport watch, whereas the Fitbit is a lot sleeker. That being said, you'll notice if you look in the video that I have already replaced the Garmin band with a cuter band that I think makes it a little bit more fashionable. Definitely not going to change the fact that it is a large watch. The Fitbit is also really nice when you look in the app, and it provides what I would consider a simpler and more appealing view of your data than the Garmin. Sometimes it's almost overwhelming what the Garmin will give you, and the Fitbit definitely has a more concise view of your running data and even just your everyday data. So if you're looking for something just for more leisurely running and for an everyday tracker, that Fitbit really has been great for that for me over the years. And the Fitbit also has many more personalization options for its display. You can make it cute, and that is something that I do like. The fact that the Fitbit only has minimal button options and most of it is touchscreen has been a hassle for me many times over the years, running and just in general. And the fact that it had a subscription requirement for so much of the detailed data made it just not as good of an option now that I am getting into marathon training season. Now that I've had both watches and I've done runs even wearing both watches for my purposes, and if you are a moderately serious runner, the Garmin Forerunner 255 is a much better bet for you. But the Fitbit Sense has still been great. I have been a Fitbit wearer and user for years and years and years, and have been happy with them as well. So just something to keep in mind, but for running purposes, the Garmin has definitely been an upgrade.
And that's a 5K. So, on either one, I can press the stop here, or on the side, I can press this. The only problem with the Fitbit Sense is that I have to use the touch screen to do the information. And sometimes on days like today where it's in the mid-70s already at 9-something in the morning, or 10-something in the morning, it can be kind of hard to navigate with slippery hands. Whereas the Garmin is all button-based. Both will give me a reading. So here's what Fitbit says I did. It has active zone minutes, fat burn, cardio and peak. It'll tell my time moving, the distance Fitbit thinks I went, my average pace, my average beats per minute and my max beats per minute, calories, steps, and elevation change. Garmin has my heart rate zones broken down for me. It has my running power. It'll tell me my running power zones with percentages. It'll tell me my aerobic versus anaerobic load and threshold. It will tell me how my VO2 max is doing, where I'm in my performance, and how long it should take me to recover from this run. and it gives me my distance, my time, my pace, and a cute little map.